friend's remarks left a lasting impression on me, even after they were said. "Since you'll certainly never get married, Natalie, why don't you just have fun looking at me in my wedding dress?" My sister's insensitive comment hurt me and made me separate myself even more from the conflict within my family. However, my husband David suddenly revealed something shocking. He desired a divorce. A tragic turn of events occurred when an invitation to David's impending wedding arrived a year later. How further does he plan to humiliate me? I grasped the invitation in shock, thinking angrily. I found comfort in my kids, William and Jasmine, through it all. To me, they were everything. Intelligent, compassionate, and a continual source of pride. They supported me through the agony of fighting for custody when David and I got divorced. With determined looks on their faces, Jasmine and William stepped up to me while I was still processing the invitation. Jasmine firmly answered, "Don't worry, Mom." She and William exchanged a sly glance. "Just unwind and wait at home. Let us handle it." I couldn't help but be curious about what they had planned and a little anxious at the same time. I trusted my children despite my concerns. Like their father, who was intuitive and kind before everything fell apart, they had always been. I'm Natalie, and this year I turned 53. Last year, my husband David startled me by announcing that he could no longer live with me, which resulted in our abrupt divorce. I was totally taken by surprise because I had assumed that our marriage was going well. If I had unintentionally upset David, I couldn't stop wondering what I could have done wrong. My menopausal symptoms got worse because of this, which made me even more distressed. I met David, who is a few years older than me, at work where I helped him out as a salesperson as his office assistant. We eventually tied the knot. These days, he works hard as a sales director and has traveled abroad a lot. I left my job soon after we were married, so I could devote all of my time to taking care of David and our house, as he requested. Every day, I made sure he had time to relax on his days off. Jasmine, who works in research at a famous company, and William, who is enrolled in a prestigious institution and preparing to sit for the bar exam, are our two beautiful children. Desperate to comprehend, I kept asking David why we were getting divorced during the abrupt talks, but he steadfastly declined to explain, brushing off my entreaties as irreconcilable differences. My faith was destroyed, and I was left feeling incredibly let down by his lack of closure and his distance. Upon approaching 30 years of matrimony, I questioned what exactly I had perceived in David throughout that time. My kids were probably as shocked by the whole thing as I was, and they concluded that there was no point in attempting to reason with David. They helped me proceed with the divorce, and David eventually packed up and moved out of our house. This incident took place approximately half a year before our divorce. Jasmine broke the news that she had spotted Dad with Aunt Karen when she got home one day. My lone sister, Karen, moved into an apartment close to our neighborhood recently. She had come to see us once, but I recall being uncomfortable in that little meeting. I didn't engage her in conversation. Instead, I acted coldly, and she quickly left. She rarely came to see just the two of us, even when we were kids, so it was strange that she did. We were biological sisters, yet we were very different people. My sister also disliked me. She is currently unmarried after multiple marriages and divorces. Her capacity to adjust her attitude to suit the situation has always seemed disgusting to me. We lived close by, yet we never spoke to each other. Her choice to reside close to me, for no apparent reason, actually gave me the creeps. My heart was racing with this tale of David and my sister. Even as a little child, my sister had always been cruel and self-centered. She was skilled at hiding her meanness and bullying in ways that would go unnoticed by adults. It seemed like I was the one having difficulty most of the time when I sobbed because of her. She would pretend to be a good sister while consoling me in front of adults. A particularly memorable occurrence happened around Christmas, not long after I started primary school. We received dolls of a well-known animated character from our relatives. My sister was given the lively, tomboyish girl with black hair and a black clothing. The most well-liked by the kids was the one I got, the one with the blonde hair and the pink clothing. I felt ecstatic, happiness radiating from my eyes. However, my sister quickly decided she preferred mine after seeing it. My sister ignored my objections and reached out to me while the grown-ups were occupied speaking and making their way to the living room, saying, "Let me see that for a second." She snatched up my doll, and there was a horrible pop as the sparkly lace and sequin dress broke apart. It was destroyed in an instant while I was just admiring it moments before. I was frozen with shock, and then I started crying. I sobbed so hard that grown-ups nearby could hear me. Surprised, they wanted to know what had happened. "Natalie ripped her doll's dress, poor thing," my sister remarked, stroking my head as if nothing were wrong. "I'll give mine to her." My sister's performance deceived the adults, who complimented her on her kindness. Our parents scolded me for not taking better care of my present in the meanwhile. My sister handed me the doll with the black dress in front of everyone, and I had no choice but to take it. She even forced me to thank her. My sister merely grinned. My sister later received a brand new doll with pink clothing sent to our home. She continuously flashed it in front of me and exclaimed, "Look, isn't it nice?" My doll should have been the one. Things like these occurred frequently. Living with my sister became a significant stressor. She always seemed to take pleasure in causing me pain. I was nervous. I hoped she wasn't planning anything. Throughout middle and high school, my sister Karen rarely studied. Instead, she enjoyed hanging out with her friends and frequently partied late into the night, much to our parents' concern. Studying isn't my thing. She would occasionally stare at me as if mocking my dedication, but mostly she would say, "I'd rather do fun things that I can do now." I studied really hard to achieve academic excellence because our parents were quite concerned about Karen. Because of my good marks in middle school, I was selected to be the class representative. Those who were acquainted with Karen frequently expressed surprise and inquired, "Are you really Karen's sister?" Our parents were concerned about more than just her lack of academic focus. When Karen strolled the streets late at night, she would frequently result in police calls because she would spend hours loitering in front of Walmart with her suspicious pals. Karen didn't seem to mind that our parents always had a troubled and depressed appearance. She had even boldly declared, "One day, I'll marry rich, and everyone will thank me." Karen had a passable physical appearance, not stunning, but good enough to draw attention on occasion. But I thought Karen was at her most endearing in elementary school. She became more defiant as she grew older. She disobeyed school policies by staying out late, smoking discreetly, and wearing cosmetics. She used inexpensive makeup that clearly harmed her skin and hair, but she didn't notice how she looked. Everyone in Karen's closest friends said it was unrealistic for her to marry a wealthy man when she began drinking. I had my first relationship during my freshman year of high school. Karen just so happened to walk by the fast food restaurant where we were going on a date. She came over to smile at us like she was someone else entirely. "Is this your pal, Natalie?" My partner was surprised when Karen stated, "Introduce him to your big sister." I felt much more uncomfortable and horrified. My naive partner presented himself, and Karen never stopped grinning at him. He must have believed that we were sisters. I got up immediately and suggested we head to the movies so we could avoid Karen as much as possible. However, this proved to be a grave error. Karen seemed to be shocked and exclaimed, "What a coincidence! That was a movie I also wanted to see." I didn't think she would go that far, but she was going to ruin our date. Just as I was about to say no, my boyfriend, in an attempt at being kind, suggested that since we were already there, we watch it together. It was unbelievable to me. I was really looking forward to seeing this movie. Karen, seeing my annoyance, changed her approach and said, "But Natalie might find it bothersome if I join," projecting a disappointed expression. It was obscene, in my opinion, rather than merely unpleasant. I grudgingly agreed, though, because I didn't want to look bad in front of my lover. "It's okay." The date to the movie ended disastrously. My boyfriend inadvertently ended up sitting between my sisters and me in the dark, since I was unable to concentrate on the movie. It seemed that Karen had grasped his hand, something I knew nothing about. My partner and I split up around 2 weeks later, with him saying he'd moved on to someone else. I recognized her right away as Karen. For a short while, Karen played around with my ex-boyfriend and then promptly dumped him. I later learned that the encounter caused him to become afraid of women. I questioned Karen about it, questioning how she could so easily take advantage of someone else's boyfriend. "He expressed his feelings to her on his own," she said, glancing at me nonchalantly. I became enraged and yelled at her, accusing her of luring him into the movie and then heartlessly abandoning him. Karen erupted in laughter, claiming she was annoyed to see me happy and that she didn't keep track of such things. She made fun of me, saying I was overly arrogant to ever be in a relationship. I asked her why she constantly did such nasty things to me and what she had against me, and tears welled up in my eyes. In response, Karen retorted coldly, "Because you're my sister. Perhaps the idea of you being happier than me is too much for me to handle." I realized that day that I would never have my sister. After my husband David left, Karen paid me an unexpected visit about a month later. I realized right once that she was there to spread rumors about my divorce. She made an attempt to be kind and inquired, "How are you doing, Natalie?" I felt uneasy with her touch on my shoulder. "What is your desire, Karen?" I said, seeming to be angry. Then she showed an abrupt interest in seeing my kids, William and Jasmine, for whom she had never previously shown concern. I was in disbelief. She was unaware that it was a weekday afternoon and Jasmine was at work, while William was at college. Maybe that wasn't shocking, since Karen had never had her own children and had been married 3 times and divorced twice. "They're at work and school, obviously," I retorted icily. She appeared bored, as though she needed an excuse to talk to the children about something in particular. She sat down on the couch and started talking without pausing. "You recently went through a divorce, and it appears that I'm going that route too," she said. I sighed to myself, vowing never to do this again. However, I told myself that it's none of my concern, and she's free to do as she pleases. Not that I've ever met any of her ex-husbands. As she frequently boasted, Karen was married to a terrific catch, an airline pilot. It's unclear how they got together, but they appeared sincere in their love. I can't even begin to count how many times she boasted about it then. "Since you'll probably never get married, why don't you just have fun looking at me in my wedding dress?" she asked. But even though her husband's parents lived with my sister, they were never happy with each other. Her husband, who was supposed to be her protection, was seldom home because he was too busy flying. My sister's in-laws were enraged when she began going out and having fun because she was bored. Even her husband eventually lost patience with her and had her ejected. A younger man she met at the pub where she used to work became her second husband. He appeared quiet and went about his own business. They were genuinely in love at first, but then money began pilfering from the safe in the store, to which only the pair had the keys. Her spouse was so shy that he initially failed to suspect my sister. He tried to push it away, thinking that it would work itself out. However, after more than $20,000 vanished, he eventually faced her. "Why do you hold me responsible? What if there was only a computation error or something else?" My sister dismissed it with a stubborn air. Her husband experienced anxiety when faced with such a situation. However, it was discovered that Karen was the one stealing the money. Her husband took to installing security cameras, which recorded my sister slinking to the safe late at night. The moment she took the money was captured on camera flawlessly. If she gave the money back, he promised not to call the police. Naturally, he also requested a divorce, which put a stop to my sister's unsuccessful second marriage. She currently resides with her third husband, a harsh-tempered carpenter. My parents were hoping that this time would be different, especially because they were the ones who reimbursed Karen for the money she had taken from her former husband's safe, in addition to the alimony. When their relationship is going well, it's incredibly well. But my sister and her current husband are strong-willed and have short-fused tempers, so their arguments are very severe. Their rental unit has been the scene of multiple reports for loud arguments. My sister began talking about considering a third divorce today. I can't really stop her once she makes up her mind because she simply keeps going. Strangely enough, she seemed rather content when discussing her divorce. William said, "I'll go to your place, Mom." What? I was confused as I glanced at my son. What was he going to do with his attendance? "We'll attend, not for the occasion, though." My kids looked at my perplexity and smiled comfortingly. "Leave it to us. Don't worry." William rubbed my shoulder. "Just relax at home, Mom." This is how my two kids reassured me. Yet my son and daughter both shot each other with important looks. I was fascinated by what they were planning to do, even though I was terrified. My two kids comforted me, and there was a sense of expectation in there as well. I gave them permission to go to the wedding. For my sister, it was her fourth marriage, and David was getting married again. When I heard it would be a fancy affair in a 5-star hotel, I was taken aback. My sister had apparently insisted on it. Even for his second marriage, David, a senior sales director who aspired to be an executive, had to present his new bride in a spectacular way. In addition, my sister had made plans for a bridal gown to be created to order. Her lack of shame at her age astounded me, and I felt sorry for David because he was so easily tricked by my sister. My sister was manipulating my husband, and after she got her way, it was typical of her to casually brush David aside. She was just attracted to him because he was my spouse. What was mine was always what my sister wanted. Jasmine interrupted as they were getting ready for the nuptials, saying, "Mom, actually, Dad messaged us last night. He declared his desire to have custody of William and me." "What?" I let out a shocked gasp. Was this his next attempt to kidnap my kids? That is absurd. "We're not infants anymore," William mockingly said. Despite being married multiple times, my sister was never able to have children. I always felt that any child of hers would inevitably be miserable, and I also felt that God knew this. However, I never thought she would target my kids. She was quite excited to meet for that reason. Now everything makes sense. They reassured me that we would never visit her home, and then gave me a tender hug. "See you later." When the children returned home hours later, they were beaming with happiness. They claimed it was amazing as they played back a video they had shot. The image of a wedding taking place at a 5-star hotel was quite refreshing. My sister, no matter how old, was giddy with joy while wearing a garish bridal gown. "I'm overjoyed that you two attended the ceremony," she said in a sickeningly sweet voice. "Call me Mom." Jasmine appeared as though she would soon gag out of horror. David, meanwhile, smoked a cigarette and made a sad look while sitting in a corner of the room. It was the first time William had seen his father smoke, which caught him off guard. He was jiggling his leg nervously all the time, as if he was annoyed. He did not appear like a groom at all, and he was a little terrifying. The kids left the wedding suite early, feeling uneasy. The ceremony then got underway. It was an odd wedding between the stoic groom David and the excessively exuberant bride Karen. There was tension on the faces of all the guests. The reception followed. In a happy mood, my sister was showing David too much affection. The guests were unsure of where to turn when they saw the over 50 bride acting in this manner. David pushed Karen away, aware that his colleagues were observing. The speaker attempted to inject some humor. The MC declared, "It's time for the bride to change her dress." My sister came out, and William went straight to the stage. Everybody appeared perplexed. "Congratulations on your marriage, Dad and Aunt Karen," he said. The attendees thought it was a son's speech of congratulations. William sipped calmly from his glass, yet what came out of his mouth was totally out of the blue. "6 marriages between the two of you is not typical." "Yes, Aunt Karen, I understand. You took your sister's husband. That is rather minimal. It seems like you were never normal." Immediately, the room was filled with murmurs. Their response made sense considering the majority of the attendees were ignorant of this information. "I'm going to read over some of my mother's diaries today. It turns out that today's bride stole her spouse from my mom. It's funny. The bride is her sister after all. 6 months ago, Karen arrived to tell me she was getting married to my ex-husband. She always got along with my spouse. Therefore, I was forced into a divorce. Thus, that was the main focus." David paled as he heard that. William went on. "My aunt applied for a part-time job at David's company, pretending it was a mistake to get close to him. She lied to David and repeatedly tempted him, accusing him of being defamatory about him on social media. Even though I'm not on social media, Karen told me that there were posts demeaning David. She apparently made a phony account in my name." Regretfully, David thought all of this. David began to shake where he sat at the groom's table. He mumbled, "So I was deceived after all." No one cheered Karen, the bride, as she returned after changing into her new attire. It was pretty ludicrous, the gold dress and tiara she was wearing. Karen was grinning widely, anticipating a round of applause, but she became agitated at the venue's poor response. "Is everyone okay? Why do you all have that kind of stare at me?" she questioned, growing agitated and perplexed. She was unaware of what was going on, but the retaliation didn't stop there. Jasmine got up next. "Aunt Karen, we have a sincere present for you." Surprised, Karen exclaimed, "Huh?" and cautiously peered around. The doors opened at William's signal, and a group of men arrived who were obviously not guests despite their casual attire. Aunt Karen's first spouse is on the right. He recently got married again and rose to the position of executive at work. Her second husband is the next man. Following his divorce with Karen, he wrote a best-selling book. With his new wife, he has a beautiful child and resides in a brand-new mansion. Karen seemed stunned at first, but as Jasmine went on, her cheeks brightened red. Her teeth were clenched so tightly that it sounded as though we could hear them grinding. My kids grinned at their aunt's response. William declared, "And lastly, the third husband, a carpenter." "That's just someone who used to get into problems a lot," Karen interrupted forcefully. "He will never achieve success." I triumph. But William scoffed and said, "Aunt Karen, that's not very nice." The third husband was a carpenter, but he remarried the daughter of his boss, who owns a worldwide construction company, Jasmine said, nodding in accord. Now that he is the vice president, he is prosperous and busy. Aunt Karen, we hope you have happiness as well. Karen paled, realizing that she had misjudged her second and third husbands and that they had achieved considerably greater success than she had. She was taken aback. All of the sisters' ex-husbands were now well-known and wealthy. They were dressed casually, but they looked respectable. Though they remained silent, it was obvious that they felt sorry for Karen. Her temper erupted as she thought, "Now I'm so frustrated to see them so successful." She threw the bouquet she was holding to the ground out of fury. She was uncontrollably hysterical. "It's only that David will become a sales manager, right? After all, he was Natalie's husband." What a mistake, she exclaimed, pounding her fist loudly against the table. Don't mess around, David screamed, reddening his cheeks. It seems as though he had had enough. Because that's the way it is? Does that imply you can build me a mansion and become vice president? The bride and groom got into an argument, and it was a wild situation. The guests at the wedding looked shocked and disbelieving as the bride and groom began to argue. Among the attendees were several of David's co-workers from the company, who realized that their chances of moving up in their careers, or maybe losing their jobs, were in doubt. My sister then let out a yell. Enough already! Don't get carried away just because everything is going nicely for you all. I even considered having you as my child. The kids angrily disagreed with what their sister had said. Absolutely not. Someone else entered. Karen's new boyfriend is this, ladies and gentlemen. While seeing the groom, David, Karen was also seeing other people. But I believe the day will come when he marries her for the 6th time. Everyone's attention was quickly drawn to the new partner. There was a brief commotion as he left the scene, looking shy and with a pale face. Amidst all of this confusion, David became irrationally angry. With a yell, he seized my sister's arm and asked, "How much longer do you think you can fool me? I will be suing you for alimony as we are divorcing. My employment with the organization has come to an end, and I will also be pursuing damages." The host hurried in the midst of the turmoil, and the guests began to leave one by one, frustrated. David and my sister Karen, looking very dapper in their matching wrinkled tuxedos and untidy hair, were the only things left. Jasmine and William gave each other a high five upon realizing this and exclaimed, "We did it." David and my sister, of course, immediately got divorced. Despite my sister's tears and pleas, David remained firm in his position, fearful that she would have to pay alimony. With a great deal of rage, he confronted Karen and asked how she could have lied to him so much about me. Then he suddenly broke down in tears. Jasmine and William were shocked by this emotional demonstration as they remained nearby to watch. I was in error. David sobbed as he admitted, "I did horrible things to Natalie. She probably won't forgive me, but I need to apologize somehow." The kids looked at each other. They understood, in spite of everything, that he had been a decent father from the start and had only been duped by Karen. The kids felt that even though their family dynamic might never be the same again, they should tell me that David has apologized. After the ceremony, they made their way back home, where they were relieved to hear brilliant laughter resounding from the entrance. I was relieved to hear it even. "Good to see you again. What was the outcome?" Observing the triumphant expressions on Jasmine and William's faces, I inquired. They showed me the captured footage one by one, and I was both horrified and strangely happy. I still couldn't express how horrible Karen was. After things calmed down, Jasmine said something. I was confused after William's shocking revelation that Dad wanted to apologize. William offered encouraging words, saying that since Dad sincerely wanted to apologize but didn't demand forgiveness, I should give it some thought. I gathered the guts to meet David with such amazing kids at my side. It seemed sense that he would appear unkempt and lethargic outside after the tumultuous wedding. I had heard that some of his company's executives, understanding their career prospects were ruined, left the wedding with bitter expressions. "I was an idiot, Natalie. I really apologize," David remarked, and that was sufficient in my opinion. He described how my sister had deceived him as well. "Karen will pay me alimony, and I'll give it all to you," he said. I slowly nodded. "My sister also deceived you." I firmly said, "Goodbye, David," and shut the front door. David remained there for some time before eventually turning to leave. Karen, the source of all this chaos, is now living an unstable life after being dumped by both David and her new partner. She struggled as a convenience store clerk after losing her part-time work, frequently receiving reprimands from the management. She was made fun of by the younger staff members, and she often broke down in tears. She even attempted working at a nightclub to make ends meet, but the patrons always wanted someone else. They liked younger ladies. She worked at the club too, knowing she had to pay alimony with a pinched face and gritted teeth. This was probably going to be her life for a while. I, for one, lead a contented and tranquil life with my children. William is performing well on his legal examinations, and we are excited about what lies ahead for him. I'm overjoyed that my kids have committed to always treasure me.